Can you see the slides now? All right. So we will continue a bit more on this transcendent unity of religion. If I can recap a little bit, last week we discussed that this idea of transcendent unity of religion is propagated by a school of thought um, that adopt perennial philosophy or subscribe to perennialism. Perennial philosophy is a philosophy that relies upon spiritualism and uh, beliefs in metaphysics. They call it spiritualism and beliefs in metaphysics. So they are talking about internal unity. They call it transcendent unity at the heart of all religions, and this unity is not at the level of externality. It is at the level of internal. At the level of external, there can never be unity. Yeah. At the level of external, you can only grasp diversity or differences. To a certain extent, this makes sense lah. So because they rely upon metaphysics and externally metaphysics and spiritualism, so you can see that this trend cut across religion. So you can find that the followers of these schools ranges from Muslim, Christians, yeah, Hindus, quite a number of them are Hindus, and Buddhists. Can like for example, Toshihiko Izutsu. If you are familiar with Toshihiko Izutsu, he also belongs to this school of thought. And Muslims yang very Muslim scholars yang very obvious lah following this school is Syed Hussein Nasar. And the Christians is championed by Preja Schwan, and many lah, Houston Smith. Rene Ginan also converted to Islam, reverted to Islam, but he is also into spiritualism. Yeah. But I'm not very sure whether he belongs to this transcendentalist group school or not. But what is quite clear, quite plain is that Syed Hussein Nasar, for example, always quoted from Houston Smith, Rene Guénon, because these are like masters of Sufism, masters in Sufism. All right, so we have discussed about the background of this school. Now I want to talk about the methods, the methods that lead this school to their ideas. Yeah. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about exoterism and esoterism as two different methods, and we will get to know which particular method is applicable to the transcendentalist, to this generalist scholars. Yeah. So first, let me introduce you exoteric knowledge. Yeah. Exoteric knowledge or external knowledge, yeah, or knowledge that we know by our senses and by our logical reasoning, by our reasoning and knowledge comprehended by our senses. Yeah, and this is normally in the Western not in the Western context is known as science. Science, because science is the discipline that subscribe to rational and empirical sources. Yeah? So, and I think in terms of tradition, the perennialists regard sciences like theology, yeah? Theology and whatever you can name it in Islamic studies, fiqh, usul fiqh, Quran, Sunnah. These are regarded as exoteric knowledge because you rely upon reasoning, you rely upon human experience to know things, to discover things with your own initiative. Yeah. So I will introduce you what is the opposite of exoteric knowledge later on, and why I said that Even Quran and Sunnah, the study of Quran and Sunnah, the fiqh, usul fiqh is also regarded as exoteric because these two sciences um, stop at the level of reasoning. Even though they are like metaphysics lah kan, the verses of the Quran, the Sunnah, these are revelation kan. But the human attempt towards understanding the two stop at the level of reasoning. So this is why some of these sciences are regarded as exoteric, coming from exoteric sources, yeah? Because it tells about human reasoning, attempt to understand things and to explain things. Yeah? So basically, esoteric knowledge explain about the human attempt to know things, yeah? Via reasoning and his experience. Yeah? Now, it is not that exoteric knowledge is wrong altogether according to the perennialists, yeah. But the problem of exoterism is because its scholars regard it, the knowledge derived from exoteric means or approaches or methods as uh, the ultimate, as the most reliable. Yeah. So this limit or this give the boundary to human ability to discover knowledge. Hmm. Now, for example, Xuan give a very simple example. Uh, like if you discuss in theology, kan, if you discuss Trinity, because he comes from that tradition, so he gives this tradition. Yeah. If you discuss Trinity using theology, for example, so Muslims, for example, who study Christianity via theology would not be able to understand Trinity. Yeah, because according to Xuan, Muslims will use uh, what the mutakallimun has developed, lots of reasoning, so even uh, empirical arguments to challenge Trinitarian doctrine of Christianity. Yeah. Of course, you have seen that in the works of Muslim scholars, the mutakallimun, especially Ash'arites, the Mutazilites. The Mutazilites champion discussions against Christian doctrines, right? So you can see lots of logical argumentation, yeah, and even empirical evidences to argue that Jesus could not be the Son of God. Yeah? But according to Xuan, if you, I mean, that's the problem with exoterism. You will not be able to appreciate Trinity if you use exoteric approaches. Because he said that the only way to understand Trinitarian doctrine is through spiritualism, or through esoteric knowledge, which I'm going to explain later on. Okay? So that's the only way that you can appreciate Trinity. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand how the doctrine works. And this happened in most of the cases when men of religion relied upon exoteric means. Yeah. So he blamed that the reason why, for example, in theology, we resorted into uh, condemning each other religion. Like for example, I mean the most really religious scholars that get involved in theology would be the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews lah kan. So you didn't have Buddhist theology, you don't have Buddhist theology, you don't have Hindu theology kan, or Shintoism theology, or the Chinese religion theology, tak ada. The most known religions with theology kan, very sophisticated theology would be Islam, Christianity and Judaism. Itu pun because Muslims and Christians champion the cause of theology, and the Jews were living together with the Muslim and the Christians. They were influenced by this intellectual development in the Muslims and Christian tradition and theology. And so that's the reason, according to Sean, that Muslims become exclusive, the Christians become exclusive, and the Jews become more exclusive. When they get involved in the science of theology, they could not find meeting point among them, because they will use sources to find differences. They will not be able to see the unity. Yeah. So he said that these exoteric sciences, though they to a certain extent is useful to help men to know things, but it deter men from knowing unity, from understanding, and from appreciating unity. This particular unity is of course transcendent unity in religion, and therefore when they deal with religions, they always look at religions as contradicting each other. Yeah. So this is very plain in Kalam, in Usuluddin. Yeah. So you are students of Usuluddin, you should know this. I don't know what are the courses that you have taken. I mean, not that I don't know. I'm not very sure how the lecturers approaches the subject, especially in Usuluddin. Yeah. But I think you can grasp some ideas that when you learn Usuluddin, you can see that Usuluddin make a very clear divisions about the truth between the truth and the false. So you know basically what is the truth in Islam, what is false in other religions, right? However, Sean blames this, blames that this is not the right way to understand unity, and he acknowledged that the reason why we ended up like this is because we are so much depending on exoterism. Yeah. So this is what this slide is trying to say, and then he said, well, like I said just now, Sean did not deny the contribution of the sciences. So first you have to understand that they did not disqualify altogether lah. Human knowledge gained through exoterism. So he did not blame altogether, but he said the most problematic is only lies on the fact that the exoterists, those who subscribe to exoterism, uh, only recognize the exoteric method. So he said this is the problem with exoterism. It's not that exoterism is disqualified altogether, but the exoterist himself, the scholars who use exoterism, regard that this is the only means to understand or to comprehend knowledge about religions. And they are satisfied to differentiate religion and to decipher, to determine, to differentiate, to determine, to decipher, yeah, discriminate truth from error. I mean, isn't that is the purpose of theology pun, kan? For example, because theology is meant to defend one's faith and to argue the, the truth of others. This is what theology is all about. Yeah. Um, so theology ended up with exclusiveness, for example. And I think Sean is actually talking from his own traditional experience. As you know that we have discussed about Christianity. Kan? Yeah. She also acknowledged that the most sophisticated science to the Christians before the modern sciences was theology, isn't it? Yeah? So the Christian had certain uncomfortable feeling towards theology, and no wonder that a certain period of time that the Christians themselves rejected theology, because the way they see theology is a dogmatic science. It's a dogmatic science. The science that does not appreciate logical argumentation, the science that is not scientific because it relies upon what revelation. Yeah. So that was part of the argument why what is wrong with theology. Okay. So but then Xuan said actually exoterism is useful, and there is some link between perennialism with exoterism. Yeah, it's not that they are totally separated. Yeah, they are they are also related, except that men fail to understand the extent of relationship between the two. So here's a very simple analogy lah. Sometimes when you read the works of mystics, they always talk about the kernel and the husk. The kernel and the husk. Talk about the nuts, a nut. So they give an analogy that no knowledge, human knowledge ni towards thing is like a nut, a peanut. So you understand only the kernel of the of the nuts, but you do not know the nuts itself. Yeah, you do not know the core. What is in the peanuts? What is actually the most valuable thing in a peanut is the peanut itself, not the cover of the peanuts. Yeah? That is also relevant with regard to knowledge. Yeah? You know only the forms uh, of the knowledge, but you do not know the internal, the metaphysics, the essence. Okay, I'm looking for this term. The essence of knowledge. Yeah? When you talk about God, you know only the superficial ideas about God, but you do not know the essence of God. So exoterism only stop at the level of this kernel, of this form, and fail to understand the core. The essence. So he said that, okay, esoteric knowledge is a knowledge that can help you to understand the core, that can help you to appreciate the peanuts itself, and not the form of the, not the kernel of the peanuts. Yeah? When you study theology, you can appreciate theology, but you will be also, if you become an esoterist, you'll be also able to appreciate the core of theology. Yeah, what the core of theology is speaking about. Yeah, I mean there's some logical, there's some true in that, because when I study the works of scholars of Kalam, Muslims, Christians, and the Jews, yeah, in comparison to the modern scholars of religion, I found that um, the classical theologians from these three religions, they were debating with each other to defend the sovereignty of God. Of course, God in their respective traditions, okay? So they argue, they debated because they want to defend the sovereignty of God. So they believe in God. Yeah? But today's scholar of religions, interestingly, all the discourse, all the debates actually were meant to defend, not to defend God, not to defend faith, but to defend men. So there is some truth in what Sean has been saying. Like if you are able to understand what these theologians were doing, they were actually defending God. So what actually unites them is God, the idea of God. Yeah? Except that they stop at the level of different understanding, because they are too much absorbed, too much obsessed with their own ways of understanding God. Muslims dengan the Muslims with their own cultural baggages, with their own discourse, intellectual discourse, with their own scriptures. The same goes to the Jews, and the same goes to the Christians, so on and so forth. So, but then esotericism is able to understand this unity, because the esoteric scholars share the same credibility, from where they are able to comprehend this internal, the common internal aspect of religion. Yeah. So here you can find, I've used the word intellect. The perennialists, the transcendentalists believe that only those people who have this credibility, intellect in the heart, yeah? Knowledge by the heart, yeah? The knowledge by the heart, and the heart here is known as intellect. Yeah? Now, if you read Al-Ghazali, for example, um, you will be able to make some understanding of this idea of the intellect, because Al-Ghazali describes that the soul has four other names, yeah. Qalbun, ruhun, aklun, nafsun. So which one of these four is the intellect? Qalbun, ruhun, aklun, or nafsun? Yeah. Uh, so and according to Sean, that not everyone has this capacity to know things, because God speaks to men of this credibility not through their senses, not through their reasoning, not through their logics, but through the intellect. Through the intellect. So in other ways, Chuan is trying to say that the perennialists are capable of knowing the transcendent unity of religion because they have the domain of where God speaks to them and explain to them via their hearts, via their intellect. So if you can still remember the video clip that I've shown you last week, kan? Chuan said this. How does the perennialists, the esoterics know? He said that the esoteric knows by heart. The knowledge is known by heart. Yeah. So how do you find this? Do you know by heart, or do you know by your reasoning, or only by your experience? Kan? So esoteric knowledge, according to Sean, is divine knowledge. That's why it is different from the knowledge that you gain through the reasoning, through your logical reasoning, and through your senses. Because this logic and this sensual perceptions, these are human knowledge. These are human uh, kind of instruments lah, or means to acquire knowledge. Betul tak? Your akal, your senses, kan? These are creation means to know things, isn't it? But the heart, the heart is divinely in nature. Masya-Allah. The heart is divinely in nature, and God speaks to the heart. Muslim Sufis talks about this as well. Yeah, sebab tu I think the Muslim Sufis do a lot of exercises, or disciplines to nurture the heart, and like zikir, kan, lots of prayers, kan, to clean the heart, so the heart become as pure as possible, that enables interactions with God directly. This is what Muslim mystics, Muslim Sufis have been saying, kan, having the interaction with God directly without the intervention of human akal, without the intervention of human senses, because our akal can be very deceitful, our senses lagi lah, kan, like our eyes, kan, from far we see the things very small, but when we come nearer, oh, it's very big pun, kan. So it can be easily bluff by our senses. Even our reasoning pun can be very tricky sometimes, can be very cunning sometimes. The Buddhists always blame our akal ni, as acting like monkey. Monkey mind, they call it monkey mind. Monkey mind. So in Buddhism, they try to discipline the monkey mind, human monkey mind, by doing meditation. Yeah. So there is some truth in that, but that does not mean that I recognize what Xuan say about unity. Yeah. But I think, to be very objective, there are some points in what he and the perennialist belief. Yeah. So and the good thing about esotericism, esoteric knowledge, esoteric methods is that the esoteric means esoteric knowledge is able to recognize to know knowledge acquired from the exoteric means. Okay, like I said in the beginning, it's not that the paranormalists deny the possibility of knowledge through exoteric means. Dia dah makan lah. But also because no, they acknowledge esoteric means, but they deny when the esoteric scholars that this is the limits where knowledge can be comprehended. I hope you can understand what I have been trying and struggling to explain to all of you. Yeah? All right. So that's about it. Now, when someone use exoteric knowledge, so we are only we stop at the level of external expressions of religion. So therefore, you see that theology, for example, discuss religions in terms of its doctrines, can in terms of its background, in terms of its people, the prophets can. Tapi you look at apa lagi? You look at the modern sciences lah, very clear, because this also come from the dilemma in the Western intellectual discourse kan. So I would regard that the way they respond to this issue is because of the problems that they encounter at their own level lah. The transcendentalists emerge from the Western bedrock. So that is a response against what is happening to them as well. So you see, modern study of religions, for example, kan. You see that they have different methods and approaches. I don't know whether you have encountered this in any of the courses offered in comparative religion. That religion, modern sciences have been studied via different means, via psychology, via sociology, via phenomenology, kan? Apa lagi? History. So you have like sociology of religion, history of religion, phenomenology of religion, and you have comparative religion at one end. And all these forms of modern sciences on religions reduce their understanding about religion from particular aspect. So the transcendentalists say that's why you limit yourself in terms of your knowledge towards religion. In the sociology of religion, for example, understand religion only from social perspective. And psychology only from psychological perspective. The phenomenology only from the phenomenology perspective. So you will not be able to understand the unity because you will stop at that level that discriminates religion from another. Right? So even modern study of religions will not be able to appreciate this unity. Definitely lah kan. If theology did not do it, modern sciences lagi lah. You know why? Because theology at least recognize revelation. Tapi modern sciences did not recognize or do not recognize revelation. So you limit the sources from where knowledge can be acquired. But because the paranormalist is exerting the importance of metaphysics, then they have another means for comprehending knowledge. So I think in the last meeting I've talked about sacred signs, Santia Sacra. This is also interesting with regard to why the paranormalists emerge in the Western context. Why not in the Muslim context? Of all the Muslim scholars, why only Shuan and a little number of Muslim scholars subscribe to this paranormalist school? Why paranormal schools does not become a mainstream in Islam, even though it talks about metaphysics? Kan? Interesting, right? I don't know how do you find it, but I found it interesting. The reason why paranormalist is becoming what you call that, one of the trends in the Western intellectualism is because they are responding towards what is happening in the West themselves. They have rejected metaphysics. They have rejected revelation. They have rejected religion as something sacred pun in the first place. So these scholars emerge from this background to respond again as a response against what was happening there. Muslims in general do not need these signs because um, we never discriminate metaphysics from our knowledge, right? Uh, in the case of IIUM, yeah, I think I've mentioned this many times when we study comparative religion next to Usuluddin. Where on earth you can find a department that combine the two disciplines together, because in the Western European universities this is impossible. These are two contradicting disciplines. But in IIM we are trying to integrate, though it is very challenging to integrate these two sciences, comparative religion being a modern science of religion, and Usuluddin being a very traditional science of religion that recognize metaphysics, that recognize revelation. How do you incorporate the two together? Yesterday I submitted a manuscript. The manuscript titled "The Relevance of Kalam," the relevance of Kalam in Muslim scholarship of religions, an integrated approach. This is how I see the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion to become. Yeah, how the integration can be made possible, even though one is like at one end and the other one is at like the other end. So I think from the Muslim tradition, it is not a problem in general for us to recognize the two sciences and to be learn and to be reconciled. It's possible. Possible, I say, to be reconciled, but of course, in the Western context, this is impossible. So the transcendentalists, the transcendentalists, they continue to propagate in their own way of understanding, of trying to resolve. Okay, now I'm going to the core of what we discussed today, and I'm going to relate transcendent unity with religious pluralism. Yeah. So uh, this is from where the transcendentalists responded to these questions of why there are so many religions. Remember that from the very beginning of the semester, I have highlighted that the questions posed by the modern sciences about religion is that why there are so many religions, why these different religions talk about different truths. How do you make sense of these different truths? Are they united? Are they different altogether? Which one is the right? Yeah, and then you find that modern theologies have a lot of dilemma in trying to understand this diversity. John Hake, for example, Wilfred Cantwell Smith, for example, right? And then we have also syncretic scholars, kan? And we have Hanscom, for example, trying to understand this diverse truth and trying to reconcile using via ethics per se. Yeah? And the transcendentalists say try to advocate their middle way lah, in their way of understanding, to understand this diversity. So you see kan, the reason why this question emerged in the first place is because all these scholars look at diversity as conflicting, yeah, and they cannot understand these conflicts altogether, especially the Christians lah, because to the Christians this conflict is very detrimental. And if you are not a Christian, you go to hell, straightforward. And if you are Christian, no matter whether you are a good Christian or bad Christian, you will definitely go to heaven. Okay lah, dogmatically you can accept this because God is loving. But then how about, the Christian theologian like John Hay? How about these good people from other religions? Are they going to hell? It is impossible. These are very devoted people, very good, very kind. And Xuan also share this. But Xuan is not willing to give away his tradition. So you see, he said, we pray and this and that. We can do our rituals. These people, they didn't want to let go of their traditions, but they just want to go beyond what their traditions have been imposed to them. So they relied upon metaphysics, and they use metaphysics to try to propagate the idea of unity. And when they are able to understand this unity, that's it lah. They are at peace. They are at peace. So they no more be bothered about this question of conflicts, because they say, well, at the level of externalities, you look at them, they are different, they are conflicting with each other, but at the level of the core, at the level of the sense, they are all the same. So that's it. Habislah. Kan? So this is the answer that they pose towards diversity of religions. This is one of the attempt, one of the trends of trying to understand diversity. And what's more, okay, what actually bind the esoterics, because since they are coming from different traditions, like I told you just now, kan, they are Muslim esoterists, and they are also Christian esoterists, Buddhist esoterists, Hindu esoterists, and they are all under this banner of transcendence, unity of religion. Why they can be together in this banner, under this banner? Because they believe that esotericism has a universal character. Intellect, knowledge by heart, uh, is prevalent in all the traditions. So regardless of what traditions you are together. This is how they see things, and this intellect help them to make sense of this diversity. So it's okay, diversity at the level of externalities, this does not bother us. What bother us is the unity. And we are capable of grasping this unity by heart. And how do we know that? We know that because God talks to us by heart, not by these externalities. Kan? So when God talks to us by heart, God talks to us with the same language, so we understand the same. So you see, the comparison between this esoterists with the exoterists, the transcendentalists with the pluralists. Okay, ni important, dengar baik-baik. Maybe I'll ask you in the exam. Yeah. So the differences between these two schools lies in the way how they perceive knowledge about God, because the pluralists believe that their knowledge about God comes from human interpretation per se. Is the bottom up way of understanding God. Like, people looking up to the sky, looking up to the heaven and interpret God based on their context. Remember that Shuan quoted from Xenophony, saying that, and if you come from European tradition, you picture God as having that, red hair, blue eyes, fair color of skin. If you come from the African background, then you perceive God as black in color, pointed nose. And if you come from this culture, from that culture, this is how you perceive God. Because God is only known by your interpretation. So it's the bottom up way of understanding Him. But the esoterics does not believe in that. The esoterics believe that our knowledge towards God is not from based on our interpretation towards Him, but it is based on how He communicated to us and how He manifests Himself. So He manifests Himself to the Christians as such, He manifests Himself to the Muslims as such, to the Hindus as such. And it depends on your ability to your ability to be able to comprehend His manifestation. So if the capacity of your ability lies only on the exoteric method, so you can only understand Him as Jesus Christ, or you can only understand Him as Allah, or you can only understand Him as Nirvana, so on and so forth. But there are people who his heart is clear and pure. So regardless of this different manifestation, they know that He's one. That's a transcendent unity. So it's the top down instead of bottom up interpretation. Is the top down manifestation of Him. Yeah. So if your knowledge is limited, you can only grasp Him the way He manifests Himself as Jesus, as Allah, as Nirvana. But if you have pure heart, that manifestation does not bother you. because you are capable of knowing him beyond his manifestation. And you know that regardless of how he manifests himself differently, but he is one transcendent unity. You understand or not? Okay, and which science is capable of grasping this manifestation? It's not theology, it's not philosophy, it's not modern sciences, neither. Yeah. But mysticism. Yeah, and that's the reason why the transcendentalists, all of them are mystics. Mysticism in different traditions are known in different names lah kan. So I've mentioned about this kan. I've talked about Gnosticism in Christianity kan. Also asceticism in Hinduism, in Buddhism, yeah? In Islam is Sufism, in the Muslim tradition is Sufism. And then I think in Judaism it is Kabbalah. It is called Kabbalah. Okay? So different titles lah to the different traditions about mysticism. And each one and the transcendentalists often quoted, frequently quoted from Muslim mystics, and also some of the words of the Christian Gnostics about how they grasp this unity. Yeah. So let me share with you some of the citations from the mystics. Yeah. For example, this one from Ibn Arabi in Tarjuman al-Ashwaq. Yeah. So how do you understand this metaphor, this sophistic metaphor? My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for Christian monks and a temple for idols and the pilgrims' Kaaba and the tables of Torah and the book of the Quran. I follow the religion of love. Whatever way love's camel take, that is my religion and my faith. Yeah, so this phrase, my heart has become capable of every form. So it does not matter in what forms the religions are. I mean, this is how you literally understand his words. But of course, you know that not Muslim, Sufis, mystics, they use metaphorical language to explain things, yeah. And then their metaphorical words were interpreted differently lah by different scholars. Yeah. And then Ibn Arabi in his Fusus al-Hikam said, that God possesses a face in everything that is worshipped. Yeah. And then there is also in this this is the translation of King Ibn Arabi as well. Yeah? Do not attach yourself to any particular creed exclusively so that you may disbelieve all the rest. Otherwise, you will lose much good. Nay, you will fail to recognize the real truth of the matter. God, for the omnipresent and omnipotent is not limited by any one creed. For he says, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Everyone praises what he believes, his God, his own creature, and in praising it, he praises himself. Consequently, he blames the belief of others, which he would not do if he were just, but his dislike is based on ignorance. Can you grasp? Banyaklah ini Ibn Arabi in Al-Futuhat Al-Makkiyah. Every observer of God is under the controlling property of one of God's name. That name discloses itself to him, and so on and so forth. You can read on your own nanti. So many are from Ibn Arabi. And I want to look for Ar-Rumi. Ar-Rumi in Masnawi, Jalaluddin Ar-Rumi. So these two Muslim mystics are regularly quoted by the transcendentalists. The difference among creatures come from the outward. When one penetrates into the inner meaning, makna, there is peace or marrow of existence. It is because of the point of view in question that there has come into being differences among the Muslims, Zoroastrian and Jew. And then this is also from the discourse of Rumi, Masnawi lah. So the way are various. The goal is one. Do not you see there that there are many roads to the Kaabah? For some of the road is from Rome, for some from Syria, for some from Persia, for some from China, for some by sea, so on and so forth. If you assemble one place 10 earthen lamps each in form and shape could be different from others and they could be counted as 10, but if you concentrate on the light shed by them, it is one and the same. So you see, sometimes they quoted as the lamps are different but the light is the same. It comes from beyond. And this is also the most quoted sayings from Rumi. Yeah? The lamps are different, the light is the same, it comes from beyond. Yeah. So who are capable of grasping the beyond? Those with the pure heart. Yeah? Those who have pure heart, of which God is capable of what you call that, of interacting with them. Yeah. And also one concept in mysticism, how do I say, concept ke, principle ke, teaching ke in mysticism that makes that has been capitalized lah, I would say capitalized by the transcendentalist school is this concept of wahdatul wujud. Wahdatul wujud. Yeah. I believe you have heard this in any of your courses about mysticism. Yeah, the science of mysticism, about mysticism lah in the Islamic tradition. Yeah, the school of Wahdatul Wujud that talks about the existence of one necessary being. Kan? So the transcendentalists are capitalizing on this concept of Wahdatul Wujud to advocate the idea of transcendent unity of religion, because this one necessary being is the wajibul wujud. Now, we are all not the wajibul wujud. We are the manifestations of the wajibul wujud. Yeah? So all other being is nothing but the manifestation of the outward radiance of the necessary being. Yeah. So to further explain how this concept of wahdatul wujud explain to us about the existence of the world and everything in it, including all this diversity, kan? It's because he says that man perceive the cosmos, everything around us by our senses. Yeah, and God actually use our senses to manifest himself, to disclose himself. So the word God's disclosure here is tajalli because he is superior and above, kan? So he approach us towards by means of our senses to get to know him. So he to get to know his mightiness lah, kan? To get to know his mightiness. Like for example, when we look at the mountains, when we look at the sky, when we look at the whatever things that you look around you lah, that reminds you of his mightiness. So that is his tajalli. Yeah. So I mean there is something interesting about this concept of Wahdatul Wujud, especially when they start to talk about the way he disclose himself is the way that he makes himself immanent to all of you. What is immanent? Remember tak? I've talked about this word transcendent and immanent. Transcendent is when God is far and above, and immanent is when you find him in the history, in the world. Like for example, to make you a very simple understanding about immanent, Jesus Christ is immanent God. So God disclosed himself in the form of man. God disclosed himself in the form of man, so God can be in history because God is beyond history. So if he's beyond history, he cannot show himself, kan? So that's why you have God the Father, because God the Father is beyond history. So how does God relate with man, interact with man? He has to be in the history. And the only way that he can relate with man is when he become man like Jesus lah. So he is immanent. And God's tajalli, when he discloses himself in the beings, he is actually uh, he is actually in the immanent form. In the immanent form. Yeah. But only the esoterics, only those experience wahdatul wujud, will be able to comprehend this. Kan? For example, wahdatul wujud, they have this concept of al-hulul, kan? Of fana and baqa. When God is like submerged in themselves, immersed in themselves to the extent that they no longer realize of their existence. I mean, they are totally uh, absorbed by God. So, are you interested in this school of thought? Yeah. All right. So I would say that's about it with regard to this transcendent unity of religion and how they, regard that mysticism as a science that make it possible for men to understand God in its transcendent characteristic, and how he manifests himself in the world, and um, it does not matter how he manifests himself in the world, because those with his pure hearts will be able to go beyond what is manifested, and able to grasp the unity behind the different manifestation of him. All right, so that's about it, transcendent unity of religion. Any question before I move to the next topic? Are you following me or you are sleeping? If you have question, please put that in the chat box. Okay. Let me go to the next slide while I'll wait for questions from all of you. Sainul, Siddiq here or not?
Ya, dokter. Menyimak.
Awalnya, okay. Ustaz Zainul tak ada soalan.
Madam,
Ya, siapa tu?
Nafis.
Siapa tu? Nafis.
So, madam, the ascetic, he used the intellect by them the means of heart to know or to understand knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, they do not use the rational and also the empiricism.
They
Or
use.
they use
They use kan yang cakap tadi, they appreciate exoterism. Because exoterism kan appreciate exoterism is the method of knowing things by sensual perceptions and by human reasoning. So they appreciate, but they go beyond that. They go beyond that, and the reason they did not stop at that level is because they said that if you stop at the level of exoteric knowledge, you will not be able to grasp the unity. So macam the science is limited. The exoteric means limits your knowledge. If you want to know further, you have to use other type of sciences. Esoteric. So they acknowledge. So dia kata just now in my lecture, I said that they didn't blame exoterism why they landed on exclusivism. Yeah. But they say the problem is when they started to be obsessed with exoteric method, and especially when they do not recognize esoterism or spiritualism or metaphysics. Uh, so that is a problem with exoteric uh, knowledge. Faham?
Doctor,
Yes.
how does the exoterism manage to, like you just said, go beyond rational thinking? Like for me personally, especially in mystic epistemology, for me personally to understand how exactly the Sufis got the, say, transcendent knowledge or mystic knowledge or Sufism knowledge of God or transcendent tranquility and such, let alone people who claim they got the access of transcendent unity not from Islamic tradition. How does one authorize the, yeah, like that lah. Like let alone for Sufism, I still have not that I don't believe them, but I still cannot grasp how exactly do they have the intuition of such. But let alone people who are not coming from Islamic tradition.
Brother Zainal, do you want to respond to that? I mean, I want to know also from your, experience because you study from different schools, or maybe you have answer to that.
I have an
I'm not
answer.
against Sufism, but
I know. It's okay. No, you are not wrong for asking, but maybe we can listen how Zainal. Uh,
I have an answer, but can I speak in Malay?
oh,
Because
yeah. We have Muaz. Is Muaz here? Muaz, and I think I found one brother. Is he from China? Because brother ke sister, I don't know. So okay. All right. So maybe in Arabic also.
okay,
ah, uh,
Arabic okay lah.
okay lah. Okay, maybe Zainal.
نعم. بالنسبة لوحدة الوجود أو وحدة الشهود أو غير ذلك من النظريات التي آه، اعتنقها الصوفية، يمكننا أن نقول بأنهم ينظرون إلى شيء واحد في أبعاد مختلفة، ولكن الشيء هو شيء واحد. مثلا إذا أخذنا صفة الرحمة والغضب لله تعالى، مثلا صفة الرحمة والغضب، نقول إنهما صفة لله، صفة مطلقة كاملة شاملة لجميع الموجودات، فلا نفرق بين هذا وذاك. مثلا حينما تعرض المتكلمون لمبحث أهل النار، هل ليس عندهم رحمة من الله؟ قال المتكلمون بأن هناك رحمة من الله لأهل النار. وما تلك الرحمة؟ تلك الرحمة هي أنهم لا يعذبون فوق ما يعذبون، وهذا عين الرحمة. انظر إلى هذا الجمع بين الرحمة والغضب في نفس الوقت، وهذا الذي قاله الصوفية، ولكن بنظر أدق وأتم، هكذا فقط.
Your last word بنظر
أدق وأتم.
وأتم. So you are okay. Your answer is still defending the exoterists. Still
نعم، أنا من الناس هذا.
defending the
Nah,
exoterists.
lakin idan li another karena adak wa atam, you still have to preposit it as detail and to be authoritative, say to be able to be accepted. It's still, you have still have some dimension of rational thinking is in it, not like you literally get it from intuition itself. No, I mean it's not, I'm not here my intention in this inquiry is not to like to criticize Sufism, no, but I understand that in Islamic tradition we have that such of tradition in attaining knowledge from intuition.
نعم.
Let alone I have it, putting Sufism aside, understanding it, because I as a Muslim believe Islamic authoritative theological truth. While I still cannot understand how like people like Swan and people who acknowledge, say, transcendent unity but not coming from a specific authoritative religion absolute truth, yet they claim they have the access to, say, The
Terdisinggah.
intuition as such lah.
Yeah, tak, just now Brother Zainul is actually using theological explanation about how the transcendentalists understand unity. So regardless of these differences, okay, for example, I think he used the analogy of the attributes of God, Rahmah, his names lah, I think Rahmah and Ghadab, uh, his how do you call Ghadab? His not anger lah, his power, okay. Uh, so the people of different religions comprehend God's anger and God Rahmah differently. And but actually this this anger and Rahmah is what makes God as one, as transcendent, even though his manifestation of Rahmah and anger is different. Is that what you were trying to say, Brother Zainal?
Yes, yes.
So that is theological explanation. Yeah, but Brother Zainul, I learned mysticism also in my undergraduate knowledge. But the thing that make sense to me until now about Sufism is when my ustaz says, "Zaqa tazawwaqa." Have you heard of this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you think this answer will explain? This statement will answer Brother Siddiq question.
هذه المقالة من ذاق عرف تتعلق بمدارك علوم الصوفية.
I see. Okay.
من أين يجدون علومهم؟ هل من العقل أم من الحواس أم من
Dalika soali.
نعم.
So the answer to your question, Brother Siddiqui, you have to be a Sufi to be able to understand. That's the only way. I mean, when we question our ustaz, then my ustaz said, "Haslina, zaqa tazawwaqa." When you are capable of reaching to that stage, then you will be able to understand. But I think, yes, of course, the exoterists will not be able to comprehend this because the exoterist is always obsessed with certainty, with the measurement. How do you measure your knowledge is reliable, is true or not? Isn't it? Because this is the characteristic, the criteria of the exoterists. Yeah? Exoterists. Tapi the esoterists, they believe by heart. So when they believe by heart, there is no question whether that is true or not true. But for you to be able to test that one, you have to be a Sufi first. You have to be a esoterist first. Then only you will be able to measure yourself.
I might need the short semester break to transcendent.
Well, to a certain extent, I believe in this idea of pure heart that will be able to bring you to another level of knowledge because there is one good scholar in Malaysia that explained about the function of akal and discover the function of akal in discovering the truth. This is the work of Dr. Zaidi Ismail. He is currently in IKIM and he has written a lot about the role of akal. Yeah? So he said that the role of akal can be improvised if you are capable of cleaning your soul. Yeah, because like I said just now, soul is al-aklun, al-ruhun, al-nafsun, yeah? Al-nafsu. Yeah, different characteristics, criteria and role played by the soul. Is the soul akal? Is the soul nafsu? Or is the soul qalbun? Or is it ruh? This is explained in his work titled something to do with akal lah. I forgot what is the title of his work, but I read his book quite some time ago, and you can still buy this book at IKIM, I think. Maybe CK is interested to find. And in one of his lecture, I remember that he's saying that when you are capable of cleaning your soul, your the how do you translate that in English? The knowledge, actually you are actually mahjub. There is a hijab between you and knowledge. Yeah? So the more polish your soul, the more polish your akal, and then this hijab little by little will be lifted. Hmm. So that's how you know by heart, because this hijab, when it is lifted, you know a lot of things. And this is the case of many of the Muslim scholars. How do they know things? They know because all this hijab is lifted. That's why we believe also that all knowledge that we gain is not from us. It's not because we are so clever, but it's because Allah allow us to know. He actually opened up this hijab for us. But for you to be able to acquire that, you have you have to have cleansed pure soul, especially when you're talking about knowing him. So therefore Muslim mystic, for example, they believe in cleaning the soul, making the soul pure. At least I think at this level we can take Al-Ghazali lah, because Al-Ghazali talks about Sufism in the context of apa tu, tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs by what? By acquiring virtues and eradicating vices. As simple as that. So Al-Ghazali did not teach a specific zikir or disciplines kan. But very simple, for you to get your soul very pure and original, to retain to its genuine characteristic, is only by eliminating vices and acquiring more virtues. Yeah? Unlike other Sufis who maybe resorted to certain disciplines lah kan, zikir ke. But you know that all this zikir pun is actually helping you to clean your soul. Right? So maybe Sidki, if you want to be, to have this, to test this, you can do a lot of zikir lah.
Yeah.
Lot of
As if
tafakkur.
I am not doing one.
Tafakur and tadabbur, lot of nawafil and pray, in the night, qiyamul lail. Because my ustaz say that Imam Shafi'i, before he wrote his book, he do a lot of taubat, salat taubat, zikir and salat kan. And then the student of Said Naqib Al-Atas used to say to me that Said Naqib Al-Atas, before he wrote his book, he will do a lot of pondering, meditation and tafakur, tadabbur, and I believe like, even though they didn't say it, salat, and zikir. I believe that he has his own way of, and that's why if you read Said Naqib Al-Atas book, for example, you find wisdom. You find wisdom in his works, right? So everybody is possible to be mystics if following Al-Imam Al-Ghazali. I mean, you need not to be like maybe Al-Hallaj ke, Bistami ke, ending up saying that, oh, you are God, you and God is one. Yeah? Just follow Al-Ghazali because I think Al-Ghazali has clarify and clear the mind in mysticism. if I would, if I can use that analogy, he has cleaned the mud in mysticism, because mysticism has been contaminated with many of the indigenous practices, kan, esoteric, batinis, and also indigenous religious belief, kan. So Al-Ghazali come and clean that. Al-Ghazali come not only bringing mysticism uh, to the middle part, but also philosophy and other sorts of knowledge. All right, so Sidki, Zakwa, Tazawwaq. If you want to know how the Sufis manage to get knowledge by means of intellect, you have to be a Sufis.
Sip.
Siap Alright, so ada masa lagi tak? Dah lebih masa. Alamak. So, alamak. I hope I remember lah. We are left with only one more lecture. So this Thursday you have to watch my recorded lecture lah ya. Ya Allah, I will write here and I will put it here. I will share with you my lecture on the critics to religious pluralism. Yeah? And then next week too, I will make use the whole time to make critiques to religious pluralism. I mean, I wish I can have another synchronous class, tapi yeah, I know that some of you are limited, and I don't want to be unfair to, you know, some of you can join the class, some of you cannot join the class because of internet limitation kan, whatever lah kan. So I think what I can do is to share with you the lecture on my critics to not my critics lah, critics to religious pluralism, and then sum them all together in the next class. So our test is next week ke lagi satu, minggu satu dah macam pening.
Oh yeah, dokter.
On the 10 kan our test, right?
Dokter,
Hmm.
how will be the what we also have oral test? How will it be conducted?
Oh,
Actually,
you have to submit online. I mean, you have to record it, not in class. Tak boleh lah. 40 of you kan, in class
Ah.
you don't have enough time. So you record it and send to me via Google Classroom. Yeah.
Is it like, are you going to give a question in a day and we have to record and submit it at the same day, or?
Tak. You can do it from now on. What
And
you
what
have gained from this course. Yep.
also it's like we are doing a vlog, say as such, sharing.
Yes.
How
Yes.
many minutes like you are expecting?
Don't be too long lah because you know I have 40 kan. So
Yeah.
if you give me half an hour, how much time I will have? And then the mark is like 10 marks kan. So I would say the longest is 10 minutes.
The longest, but there is no
10
limit for the shortest.
Shortest to actually at the PG level we have 3-minute thesis, which means that you have to explain your ideas in 3 minutes. So maybe the shortest is 3 minutes, but you have to be very comprehensive lah in 3 minutes. I mean, you have to be very precise and well, you know what I look forward in that oral presentation is that I want to know what you have learned from this course, what you have gained from this course. Yeah. All right. So okay, I want also to explain. Some of you said want to send to my WhatsApp, kan? I'm so sorry, I cannot use these means. I have explained this from the very beginning of the semester. Okay, this is not only for my good, tau. This is for your good. Because say if anything happen, kan? I will be able to know if your assignment does not reach me in the Google Classroom. I can alert you. But if you send through my WhatsApp or through my email and I didn't notice it, then it's going to be very difficult for me. So, this Google Classroom is an official platform. See, like when you submit your exam question using the answer sheet, this Google Classroom. So if you don't submit, then I have black and white evidence that you don't submit. Yeah. So please submit via Google Class if you do not know. Yeah, because I can explain to you, but it's good. Uh, I I don't know why you cannot submit via Google Classroom because I think you have been in the online class pun for 3 semesters kan. And I cannot understand why you cannot submit via Google Classroom. Please ask your friend. I mean the easiest way, the easiest way for me is either you share with Google Drive or what you do is that you you uh, you you open up YouTube account and put it on the YouTube and privatize it lah and share with me so I can watch it. So you share the link on the Google Classroom. That's the easiest way for you to upload it on the Google Classroom. Yeah? Alright, boleh kan guna Google Classroom ya? Alright. So those who have not submitted, please lah submit because I'm afraid by next week I forgot to tell you and then kita dah tak ada class. We don't have class and I will not be able to remind you nanti when we have finished the lectures kan, it's very difficult for me to get back to you. Tapi by a certain date, I will have to submit the marks whether your assignment is there or not there. I'm so sorry if you you see that you are not graded because I couldn't get your assignments. Yeah. So, but inshallah, I will let you know. Just a reminder that please don't leave the WhatsApp group. At least after like 2 or 3 weeks after we have finished the lecture, so I can still get back to you if I fail to get your assignments on the Google Classroom. Right? All right, class. Thank you so much. We have exceeded the time. I'm so sorry. So the Brother Zainul say can read Mizan Amal by Al-Ghazali and Al-Munkis Minat Dalal for more info about the sources of Sufi's knowledge. Yes, exactly. Al-Ghazali is a man of knowledge. Thank you very much, Brother Zainul. Inshallah, I'll see you again next week. Assalamualaikum, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam. Syukran,
Waalaikumsalam.
Dokter.
Thank you, madam. Yalah,
Thank you,
yang saya
madam.
dengar itulah. Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Bila madam tanya, semua siap. Senyap aja. Alright, okay, I'm leaving this ya. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kenapa tak ada recorded?